Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome back to another explainer where we take a deep dive into the truly fascinating realities of human history. Today, we're looking at a scenario that seems, incredibly mundane to us right now, but was absolutely vital for our ancestors. We're talking about the prehistoric rainy day. Throughout the material we'll explore today, we're going to look at survival, fire, and how a storm actually sparked some of the most critical human innovations ever.
Look, today, a week of rain just means grabbing a cup of coffee, curling up on the couch, and maybe binge watching a new show. It's cozy, right? It's the perfect excuse to relax. But for a human living 50,000 years ago, that exact same rainy week, it wasn't a cozy retreat. It was literally a fight for survival. We're talking about a life-or-death crisis that immediately triggered a whole new set of emergency behaviors, testing the absolute limits of human endurance.
Part 1. The Crisis of Rain. 3 Deadly Threats.
So, we really have to completely reframe how we think about a storm. Back then, when dark clouds rolled in, the rain could kill you in 3 very distinct ways. First up, the cold, which leads directly to hypothermia. Second, flooding. A lot of ancient cave shelters were actually situated at the base of hills, and we see layers of flood sediment in the archaeological record, proving these homes had to be abandoned during sudden, violent surges of water. And third, predators. You weren't the only one looking for a dry space. The rain violently drove everyone, humans and beasts alike, into the exact same caves.
Let's zoom in on that first threat for a second, the cold. A wet human loses body heat up to 25 times faster than a dry one. 25! Just imagine that ticking clock. The moment you're soaked by the freezing prehistoric rain, hypothermia becomes an immediate, pressing threat. It wasn't just about feeling a little chilly. It was a rapid countdown to your body completely shutting down.
And hey, if the cold didn't get you, your new cave companions just might. This brings us to a rather terrifying piece of evidence, leopard teeth. Because the rain drove all the local wildlife into the same, dry, compressed spaces, humans often found themselves face-to-face with apex predators. We know this for a fact because archaeological sites in South Africa show human remains right alongside large cats. And chillingly, some of those ancient human skulls have puncture marks that perfectly match the teeth of a leopard. No way around it. That is terrifying.
Part 2. The fight for fire. The heart of safety.
Okay, picture this. You're freezing. Your cave might flood at literally any second, and you are sharing the space with a hungry leopard. In this incredibly dangerous, high-stress world, keeping the fire alive was the single most important job in the entire community. Before roughly 40,000 years ago, we aren't completely sure how reliably humans could start a fire from absolute scratch. If your fire died, well, that might be it. You might not be able to relight it. So they used what we call biological lighters. Now, what's really interesting about this is how they worked. These were smoldering coals wrapped carefully in a specific type of tinder fungus. This ingenious little package could stay lit for hours, allowing them to transport fire safely from place to place, or just keep a precious coal alive through a damp, freezing night.
And we actually have hard proof of this survival toolkit dating back 5,300 years. That's when Otzi the Iceman was walking through the Alps. When his incredibly preserved frozen body was discovered, archaeologists found a complete fire kit right in his belt pouch, utilizing this exact same fungus and flint technology. It just goes to show how absolutely critical this fire-carrying method was, echoing thousands of years of survival tactics.
But what happens when all the wood you've gathered is just soaking wet? Enter betulin. This is a highly flammable chemical naturally found in birch bark. During a massive storm, you'd have a dedicated fire specialist in the group sitting for hours by the hearth, splitting wet logs just to find a tiny sliver of dry wood inside, or relying heavily on birch bark. Because of betulin, birch bark will actually burn even when it's totally wet. Sustaining these flames provided not just warmth and safety from those leopards, but a vibrant social center for the whole group.
Part 3. The Rainy Day Workshop. Industrial Marathons.
These ancient storms created what we can basically think of as industrial marathons. You couldn't go out to hunt or forage. The terrain was just too slippery, and a broken ankle out there meant certain death. So rainy days became a crucial dead time indoors. And these caves are literally packed with evidence of this manufacturing. Piles of stone flaking debris found exactly where someone sat by the firelight to work. Let's move through time and see how this builds. 100,000 years ago at Blombos Cave, we see pigment workshops using abalone shells as mixing bowls. 77,000 years ago, we find bedding made from insect-repellent leaves to keep their sleeping mats clean. 61,000 years ago, bone needles for tailored clothing pop up. And by 35,000 years ago, they're using carved ivory tools to twist plant fibers into really strong rope.
So it basically boils down to a simple equation. Dead time equals innovation time. These long industrial marathons, sitting around the firelight, are exactly what allowed early humans to build vital snares, traps, and way better shelters. The storm wasn't just a pause in their survival, it was a total accelerator for their technology. They used the time they were trapped inside to dramatically improve their chances of survival once they got back outside.
Part 4. Art and Social Networks, the First Creative Explosion.
But here's the thing, they didn't just build tools. As the storm raged on outside, they ventured deeper into the dark. Once the bone needles were finished and the rope was spun, a profound, almost mystical shift happened in the atmosphere of the cave. Take Chauvet Cave, for example. The incredible paintings of lions and rhinos found there weren't just casually painted at the cave entrances where the natural light was good. No, they were painted hundreds of meters inside the pitch-black cave, illuminated only by the flickering light of animal fat lamps. It's a deeply deliberate act of creation happening deep underground while the rain just poured outside.
And this brilliantly illustrates something absolutely essential about how we evolved to learn. During the day, communication was intensely practical, right? Logistics, gathering, planning. But around the nighttime fire, an amazing 80% of talk was dedicated to stories, songs, and ceremonies. This is actually exactly how children learned incredibly complex survival topics. They weren't given dry data or textbook lectures. They absorbed the maps of their world, animal behaviors, and plant safety through captivating, memorable fireside stories. This fireside gathering was our original social network, ensuring the most vital, complex information was passed on in a way that truly captivated a young mind.
This network was how critical survival knowledge, like, say, where to find water during a brutal drought, was hardwired into the minds of the next generation. And it is incredibly resilient. To put that into perspective, some Australian Aboriginal oral traditions describing things like ancient sea level changes have survived exactly this way for 7,000 years. That is an unbroken chain of stories teaching complex ecological history to children year after year, and it all started around these very fires.
Part 5. The storm passes, the aftermath.
Eventually, however, every storm breaks. When ancient humans finally stepped out of the cave, the crucial point is that the rain didn't actually slow them down. The intense storm washed away all the old scents and softened the mud, providing absolutely perfect tracking conditions for their next hunt. The environment was essentially reset, giving them a massive advantage as they stepped out with their brand new, newly manufactured tools.
It really all comes down to this core takeaway. They didn't get bored, they got creative. The rain provided the essential downtime to prepare, to innovate, and to construct the physical tools and the social stories that built the very foundations of human culture. They literally took a deadly threat and used it to thrive.
Which leaves us with a pretty provocative question to ponder the next time you're stuck indoors. What are you going to build during your next rainy day? Will you just fire up the screens, or will you channel your ancestors and use that dead time to innovate? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this changes how you view a simple rainstorm. I'll see you next time.